Hello everybody, as ironic as it may be, I was always terrified of horror movies growing up, and although I enjoyed watching them, I always had horrible nightmares. Today, with 30 years behind it, the genre has become one of my favorites, and Phobia Stedifina Hotel is the kind of the game that would make my 20-year-old self cry in a fear at night. Developed by Brazilian studio Pulsatrix, Phobia SD Dinfia Hotel aims to bring to life the legend that surrounds the municipality of Tres Tilas, located in the state of Santa Catarina. I confess that after playing Phobia, my desire to know the city reduced to zero. But it was an interesting to notice every detail presented between the past and present of the stories. Phobia is a game full of good surprises, but unfortunately, it doesn't escape the bad ones either. So it tells the story of Roberto Leite Lopez, a recently graduated journalist whose passion is investigate journalism. And his first exclusive feature, he accepts Stephanie's invitation to the visit town of 13 tracks to investigate the paranormal events and disappears of this spooky hotel. After facing a mysterious event, Roberto wakes up in a hotel completely destroyed by some kind of explosion and full of bizarre creatures. Now it's up to him to find a way out of this place and tell the world about the horrors he's seen. Honestly, for a game that is based on the legends of a real city, Phobia ST Definitive Hotel managed to develop the story very well. Both the order of how everything happens and the emergence of the sect responsible for the tragedies were well designed, bringing a very solid background to the game. Perhaps the only problem within the narrative is how they tell the events on the past. During adventure, Roberto has access to several documents, but none of them speak directly about how the sect came to be or anything about its leader, Christopher. However, at the center point, the player ends up being taken in the past precisely to see how it's all started. For those who are playing this good, as it starts to make the story pull you back a few years later. As the title deals with the supernatural things, they could have put in a flashback moments of vision that would help justify the time travel. Plot and monsters aside, I must say that Phobia ST Defining Hotel positively surprised me in many other ways. The first one is the graphics. Although the character model look like something 3D cartoon, the scenarios as a whole give a show of their own. The ray tracing effects on the ground, in the mud, in the water running down the gutter, the river, everything is so well done and beautiful that even when I spent hours playing the same game, I was still amazed at the small details that Pulsatrix made. Issue to implement in each part of the work. The design itself earns a lot of the points. In addition to the clear inspiration in the great horror classic, Phobia also takes a bit of Outlast and elements from Chernobyl lie there, and that's not bad. On the contrary, everything was very transported and used with the narrative, marrying very well the proposal to make a title that leaves you on alert most of the time. As I mentioned above, Phobia puts the player in a stage of alert almost constantly. And no, don't expect to have several scares. Here is the game to be forced to be cautious. The sound effects of cracking doors, monsters making noises somewhere in a hotel, and even the simply floor make you think that at any moment something or someone or something is going to come out and a hole to attack you. On the other hand, while the sound effects are very well served, the voice acting fails to offer the same emotion. In addition to being low, some voice actors fail to convey the sense of panic the situation demands. The English dubbing, however, is very good, and honestly, I can tell that the Brazilians speaking of their called native played this role, but whatever the case, Pulsatrix is to be congratulated. If you thought Phobia would be a game focused on stealth, you were wrong. It has no intention of being a horror Call of Duty, however you have several weapons at your disposal and the possibility of improving them with an item that can be found through the scenarios. Although the amount of the bullets and quantity is reasonably good, the game requires you to remain cautious, as even if there aren't many enemies normally, and at times of tension they simply sprout out take a lot of HP. There are some inferable worms, for example, that are difficult to see in a dark, and if they are not defeated beforehand, several of them will jump on a Roberto and take a good amount of HP. By the way, recovering the HP phobia is a real challenge. You need to find these essential items if you want to heal in a definite way. The problem is there are few of these tools out there, and if you don't scan the scenarios, you will go unnoticed. And believe me, you don't want to miss them. If I miss the puzzles in overall games, I can say with a certainty that the phobia will not let you down. There are numerous puzzles to solve, never primary or secondary, which will give you access to the items to continue the adventure and improve the equipment you have. A different point here is to use of the camera, which somewhat resembles the camera obstructor in the Fatal Frame. However, instead of using it capture ghost, you open it previously hidden passages, as well as being able to reveal the object that weren't there before. Here too, there are a lot of backtracing or sort it all, and that's not a problem. What gave me a headache was the lack of save points in the places you think should exist. There are chests to store your equipment and free up space in the back. However, they are not always the same room and can appear without being accompanied by the clock that severs the progress. I find this a bit nonsensical, but it is it. And with that in mind, I recommend saving progress whenever possible, ever if you have to go back a few floors to go to. So, Phobia is a really good horror game, and the Brazilian studio Pulsatrix did an excellent job of bringing a lot of clever and even comical references to the game, fitting them together in a way that made sense. The game is not perfect, and even far from it. I came across some bugs along the way. I find switching from one to another other bit slow and sometimes unresponsive, forcing you to press the same button more than once, but that sure can be fixed with update. Pulsatrix is to be congratulated for being able to make such an immersive horror the game that doesn't resort jump scares to scare. However, they also convicted me of something else, never to visit the city of tree styles. So, don't judge the Phobia just because it's the indie title. The game is very well crafted and with incredible details. Despite some technical and story triggering issues, it can be considered one of the best horror games I've ever played. Thanks. Have a good one. Bye.